All right, well, good afternoon and welcome to our Alumni Insights webinar featuring Greg Kirstein, alumnus from the Duquesne School of Law. I'm Sarah Speary, the AVP of Alumni Engagement, and I'm excited to have you join us to learn more about breaking into the sports industry. Before I begin the introduction of our moderator and presenter, I'd like to take a moment to thank my colleague and alumna, Audrey Tierney, Associate Director of Alumni Engagement, for arranging for this program. Audrey will be managing the technical aspects of the program. Throughout the presentation, your microphones will be muted, but you are welcome to submit questions or comments through the chat feature found on the toolbar on the bottom of the screen. Pre-submitted questions and those received through the chat feature will be addressed, time permitting, following the presentation. Now I'm excited to introduce our moderator, Michaela Hall, alumna and current graduate student at Duquesne. Michaela completed her bachelor's degree in sports media and information from Duquesne University in 2019. During her undergraduate career, she was a field reporter for Pittsburgh Hockey Now, which at the time was broadcast through the CW Pittsburgh. She is currently continuing her education as a graduate student obtaining an MFA focusing in media arts and technology. Michaela serves as the president of Duquesne Student Television, which produces student-run film projects and media outreach for other student organizations. Michaela, I'll turn the program over to you.
All right, thank you, Sarah. I was so happy and just what a privilege to be asked to serve as your moderator today. I'm so pleased to introduce today's Alumni Insights presenter, Greg Kirstein. A native of Western Pennsylvania, Greg has devoted almost 30 years to bringing professional hockey to Columbus, Ohio, and has served the last 20 as Senior Vice President and General Counsel of the NHL's Columbus Blue Jackets. With a core group of visionaries, Mr. Kirstein has also been a catalyst in the construction of 9 ice rinks and the formation of some 25 high school teams and youth programs. He has served as president of the Chiller LLC Ice Rink Company, secretary of the Blue Jackets Foundation, and an adjunct professor of sports law at Ohio State. A graduate of Ohio State's Journalism School and Duquesne School of Law, Mr. Kirstein received Business First's Top Corporate Counsel Award in 2012, Duquesne Law School's Distinguished Alumnus Award in 2016, and the 2017 Outstanding Alumnus Award from Ohio State's Stadium Honors Dorm. He was inducted in 2018 into Bethel Park School District's Great Alumni Hall of Fame and currently serves on the Duquesne University Alumni Board of Governors. Greg, I'm looking forward to hearing your presentation today so much. I'll join you all at the end for questions. The virtual floor is yours.
I hope I can live up to the introduction. Good afternoon, folks. It's good to be here, and I'd like to thank Sarah and Audrey and Michaela and Danny. It takes 4 people to help me with technology. It's not one of my strong suits, but let's have a little fun this afternoon if we can. Some ground rules before we get started. I'm not a spokesman for the NHL or the Columbus Blue Jackets. So if somebody tweets that the guy said, that would be wrong, okay? Commissioner Bettman runs the NHL and our president runs the Columbus Blue Jackets. So we always have to have this disclaimer at the beginning of these presentations. Number 2, if I can't answer a question when we get to the Q&A part, I respect why you're asking it, but there's certain things that I can't delve into. We're waiting to find out when the season's going to start, and I have people from time to time asking me, well, how much money will the teams lose if no fans are allowed into hockey or basketball this year? Sport right now is a very complicated situation. You've got owners, players, unions, television, sponsors, arenas, state and provincial governments, and closed borders. And so virtually impossible to predict what's going to happen as you know, October approaches November in either the hockey or basketball industries, you know, including Duquesne basketball. So the next sort of general theme before we get started on tips of how to break in, and we'll end with this, but this is an exercise in patience for those of you that want to make your career of doing this. Why do I say that? In the mid 70s, when I was in school, there were two sports administration or sports marketing programs in the country. One was at Ohio State, the other was at St. John's University in New York City. Today, there's probably 350 undergrad sports marketing or sports admin programs in the country. So, those of you that are enrolled in that at Duquesne or who have graduated from somewhere else in one of those programs, the competition of your peers for these jobs is very, very, very thick. Now, here's the good news, however. Sport has also exploded in the last 50 years. If you think of when ESPN started in the early 80s, it was this channel and it was half sport and half movies. And no one ever thought that there would be ESPN2, ESPN3, ESPN Plus, ESPN Deportes, ESPN Classic, ESPN News. So the competition for these jobs and the number of trained young people has exploded, but so have the number of jobs. And I just want you to feel that as we go through here today, that this will be very unlikely that you'll graduate and the next day you'll have a job in sport. If you do, God bless you. That means you've done really, really, really well. The next sort of takeaway, this is a business. There's a confusion in the marketplace and with fans that I want to be in sports, and you should not confuse the competitive side. The competitive side are the athletes, those who take the field, those who take the court, those who jump in the Olympic swimming pool. Unless you're going to leave this webinar today and either go play or coach, you need to realize that you're on the business side, and they rarely cross over. I'm not capable of doing what our salary cap person does. That gentleman happens to know the salary structure of all 700 men in the NHL, all 700 men in the American Hockey League, and he knows when every one of their contracts expire. Conversely, he's not capable of doing my job of, the lease for the arena or our television broadcast deal with Fox Sports Ohio. But you need to realize that if you're not on the playing side, you're in business, and it may break some hearts, but there's a thick line between those. We know each other. We go to the same office every day, pre-COVID anyhow, but we don't try to do each other's jobs. Two other little things. Your timing is horrible right now. Of all the industries that are pretty well shut right now, sports, concerts, and the airlines might be the top three. So I'm giving you advice that I hope will last post-COVID when things get back to normal. Most of the clubs have a hiring freeze. Many clubs have had to terminate or furlough people. The prediction is that the concert industry, for those of you who have an interest in entertainment, concert industry may come back first or second quarter of next year, at least on the outdoor side where it's theoretically a little safer, but timing is not good right now to break into the sports industry. And that's another reason that you'll have to be patient. Next, on a personal note, I want to say hello to my Aunt Eileen. I think she's on this call. And all that the audience needs to know is that Aunt Eileen and I got to know about each other in Duquesne when the Beatles were making hit records. So if she's out there, thank you for joining the call. She's one of the first Duquesne people that I ever met. She and my late uncle, her husband. So hello, Aunt Eileen. Okay, let's go to slide one. Pretty cliche, right? Be excellent, be excellent. But what am I talking about? Well, for most of you, the goal is obviously the pros, the top of the collegiate level, the Olympics, as I mentioned. Sure, you would rather work for the Pittsburgh Penguins than the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Penguins or the Wheeling Nailers. You'd rather work for the Pirates than you would for the AA team in Altoona. But if you're going to do that, you need to be the best of the best, the same as the players. And that sounds scary, and I'm aware of that, okay? but I run into particularly students, because I do a fair amount of this speaking, who think that they're going to start at the top, and that's not the way it works in most industries. It doesn't matter if you go to a healthcare organization, a financial institution, a trucking firm. You start at the bottom and you aspire to be the best of the best. But in order to get in the door, the first thing you have to be is excellent. And as it says at the bottom of the slide, you'll never hear, as an HR department looks through candidates, there's no appetite for mediocre people. And I don't mean to disparage anyone, but and then you've got to be multi-talented. And we hear about baseball players all the time needing to be 5-tool players. 5 tools, so they have to be able to hit, they have to be able to field, they have to be able to run, throw, and know the game. In the world of getting into the sports industry, you've got to know how to write, you've got to know how to talk, you've got to know how to handle adversity, you've got to know how to problem solve. So it's not, my grades are really good, but I don't do much else. It's not, I have a million community affairs, but my grades aren't very good. It's not that I have great grades and a great community resume, but I have a lousy attitude. I can't wait to get out of work. I'd rather enjoy my social life. Those are the kind of things that you have to eliminate from your presentation of yourself. You've got to be that multi-talented 5-tool player. And for some people, if you've already gotten off to a rocky start, grade wise, career wise, then you've got to work at fixing it. For some people, if you're strong at 1 or 2 tools, but you just haven't had time to delve into the others, you've got to rearrange some things to make that time. As I said, the Human Resources Department at the Blue Jackets reports to me, and I can tell you what we look for when we're looking at any of you as potential candidates along this theme of being excellent. It gets pretty simple. I've got 5 bullet items on here. We look for 2, performance and fit. Performance, can you do the work? We're going to hire you to do XYZ tasks, and we need to know that you're going to be able to do that superbly on most days. And fit, are you the type of person that we want to show off to others around the community, to our sponsors, to our business partners? And are you the type of person that people want to work with as opposed to people want to avoid or they're neutral about? So performance and fit. And you get there by being able to check these boxes that you were pretty good in the classroom, you were pretty good in the community, you did some extra things, you show up with a can-do attitude every day, and you impress people. We look for people whose attitude is, how can I help, as opposed to what do you want? And there's a distinct difference. And you've all felt that in your workplaces, with your classmates, perhaps with your families. But those are, again, cliche. Those are basic tools. But if you don't have them, I don't like your chances. I shared with Sarah that we'd tell some war stories as we went through today. And, at our hockey team in Columbus, we've been there 20 years. The Penguins are at 55 plus years. The Detroit Red Wings are at 80. Despite how young we are as an organization, we still get 200 to 300 applications for every job. Doesn't matter if it's ticket sales, it's a entry level $25,000 a year position, or if it's a senior vice president, we're going to get 200 to 300 applications. So all the more reason that you want to be excellent, because you have to hope that whatever you send us that tells us the story about you rises to the top, and you're one of those 5 or 10 resumes that we look at out of those 200 or 300. I have a young lady who is, her title is legal fellow. She works in our legal department. We hired her roughly a year and a half ago. We had 110 applications to be an entry level legal fellow, a 1 to 2 year fellowship that really has no guarantee to it at the end. She's doing great work, and we'll evaluate where she fits into the organization when her fellowship is over. But just for a job that potentially had an end date to it, we still had 110 applications from across the country. So, I want you to feel this. I don't want you to be discouraged. I want you to be encouraged about why you need to be excellent. Okay, next slide, please. So you're going to present how outstanding your talent is. If you look at the first picture, okay, we do not need you to be that person. No, 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 no. You cannot be fanboy or fangirl when you come to interview in professional or collegiate sports. I get cover letters and resumes, it seems like every week. Dear Mr. Kirstein, I'm a season ticket holder. I'm my fantasy league champ. I got Ben Roethlisberger's autograph, and my dad saw the owner of the Steelers at a restaurant. And nowhere in the letter does it tell me why they're qualified to work for me. I'm looking, scouring, if you will, their letter. What kind of accountant are you? How good of a marketer are you? What have you done in community affairs? And I get a presentation about how big a fan they are. The slide's a little smart alecky on purpose. Go to a Penguin game, go to a Blue Jacket game. There's 19,000 people there, and 0.01% are qualified to work in sport. So just because you like sport doesn't mean you're qualified to work in sport. That's why I pointed out, in the early themes, that you're getting into business. Sport is sort of the second tier. You're getting into business, you work at a bank. You're getting into business, you work for a healthcare concern. But you're getting into business, and it just so happens that business is sport. But please, 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 because it's a mistake I see, and the younger the people, the more I see the mistake. You're paying $25,000, $50,000, $75,000 a year for these educations across the country, and your presentation is not how talented you are, it's how much of a fan you are. And it's just backwards. And the HR departments at all the teams and all the leagues and all the ESPNs, they just put your resume in the trash pile. That's what happens. We have a saying, and it's a little smarmy, but at the end of the game, the fans leave and the employees stay. You want to be one of the people that gets to stay when the game's over, because you're going back to your cubicle or your office because you work for the team, because you showed us that you were excellent. So is it okay to mention that you're a fan? Sure. It helps if you know your industry. Should you mention it fifth or sixth or seventh of all the things you present? Yeah, keep it as a low priority. Funny story, you don't want to be completely devoid of knowing nothing about the industry you're applying to. And those of you that are hockey fans will understand this more than others, but our very first administrative assistant at the Blue Jackets in 1998 got a message from Mario Lemieux, the player and now owner of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the phone message was for our general manager. And our administrative assistant had not spent any time learning about the NHL. And she gave the message slip to the general manager that he was to call back Julio Lemieux. So we quickly bought her a subscription to the Hockey News magazine and asked her to get a little more educated. So you don't want to be that off the charts, but please present yourself and your talents first, and your fandom as a little lower priority. quick snapshot. I'm one of our 4 senior vice presidents. Our chief financial officer comes from a nursing home background. He used to do the finances for a chain of nursing homes. Our chief marketing officer has run some of the largest YMCAs across the country. So she comes from a YMCA background. Our chief operating officer spent almost his whole career in the NBA with various teams. So none of the 3 of them were hired because they were hockey fans, if that just sort of cements the point for you. Okay, next slide. So we're going to distinguish ourselves because we want to get to the top of that pile. We don't want to be number 75 of 200 or number 111. We want to be number 3 or number 5, something like that. Those of you that read a lot, one thing I've always been impressed with, you go to the book jacket on the back of the book, and it gives you a little biography of the author, and it says that he or she is an accomplished author, and they're a world-class skier, and they know how to cook French food, and they started a charity, and they're a college professor. I'm blown away by those people because they have those multiple talents and they excel at all of them. And I think that's how you want to try to distinguish yourself. Give us something when we're reviewing, excuse me one second. Give us something when we're reviewing your resume that makes you different, makes you stand out. I start with volunteer activities and everybody says, well, what am I supposed to go do? There's been a major marathon in Pittsburgh since the early 80s. So 40 years, you can volunteer for the Pittsburgh Marathon. There is a PGA or LPGA event every few years in Western Pennsylvania, typically at Oakmont, sometimes at the other clubs. Golf tournaments are always looking for volunteers. You have Division I athletics at Pitt, Duquesne, and Robert Morris right in your own city. You have the Special Olympics. You have the Riverhounds playing soccer. And the list goes on and on and on and on about where you could volunteer. You just have to do the spade work to find those potential internships, those potential clerkships, those potential fellowships. Sports experience, sure, that helps you distinguish yourself. If you can make it in sport, it'll help you all the more. If you can't, then transferable skills are okay. If you can sell, then you can sell. Again, sounds cliche, but I tell the story. We hired a young man at one point to sell hockey tickets for us. What he had sold previously were, and this will sound crazy, okay, so just bear with me, but it came to his attention that all the colleges in the country, every one of them that has a football team, the home team is allowed to use whichever football it wants. And so every time there's a change of possession, a different ball is put into play. When it rains, the balls get soaking wet, and that's not good for the football game or the quarterback. His company was selling dryers, portable dryers that were on the sidelines. And when the other team had the ball, you put your footballs in the dryer and it dried them until your team got the ball back. We figured if he could sell football dryers to small colleges, he could sell hockey tickets. So skills are transferable. So if you can't find that sports job, if you can't find that marketing job, that ticketing job, that finance job, that building operations job, find a job or an internship or a clerkship where you think those skills will carry over. We've got a young man in our office who is, now on the salary cap team. And the way he distinguished himself when he was in law school, he wrote his entire law review article on the collective bargaining agreement between the hockey players and the hockey owners. Okay, it's a massive labor agreement. But he went out and made himself an expert on the collective bargaining agreement, and then he got it published in the law review at his law school. And it turned out he knew his stuff. He was pretty sharp about it. So you've got to look for And I mention those just as little examples of how other people have navigated the path that you all want to be on. The young lady that's my legal fellow lived over an hour away from where the Oklahoma City Thunder plays basketball in the NBA. She volunteered to put on events in the building, promotions team, things like that. And she volunteered to sell tickets. Doesn't sound like much, except she had a 2-hour round trip for every Oklahoma City Thunder game, driving from somewhere outside of Tulsa to Oklahoma City. Those are the kind of things that if you present that to us, it's going to distinguish itself that you were willing to make a 2-hour round trip for a 2-hour basketball game. That sort of makes you special. Okay. Next slide, please. You're going to do a broad search. There's a misnomer that life is restricted to football, basketball, hockey, and baseball. And you can't do that to yourself. There is more out there, and you have a much better chance of getting employed if you look in all the little corners, all the nooks, all the crannies. I challenge people to take a blank legal pad. Today, you can read Yahoo Sports, Bleacher Report, Barstool Sports, any of the online sources. In my day, we read the sports page, but I challenge you to take whatever your news source is for sport. Very simple, a blank piece of paper and a pen or pencil. And as you read, just write down all the potential employers. You'll have over 100 within 5 minutes. The list will become tedious. You'll confuse yourself, but you've got to branch out beyond the big four conventional professional sports. I've given you some examples here. Everyone thinks, I'm going to work for the team. I'm going to work for the team. I'm going to work for the team. You can work for the league. You can work for television. You can work for radio. You can work for internet. You can work for sponsors. The sports group at a place like Nike, a place like Gatorade, a place like ESPN, a place like Anheuser-Busch. The sports group has dozens, if not hundreds, of employees. And you get to, quote, work in sports, but you might be at a brewery. You might be at a shoe manufacturer. All the professional leagues have unions. All the amateur leagues have governing bodies. There's a United States Soccer Federation. There's a United States Gymnastics Federation. There's a United States Volleyball Federation. There's the NCAA. There's the Atlantic 10 that Duquesne plays in. There's the ACC that Pitt plays in. Robert Morris has now moved on to the Horizon Conference. You get the point, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's tennis and golf and lacrosse and soccer. And there's this little secret out there, wrestling. Those of you that, scour TV channels, you'll see professional wrestling on TV. Little known fact, 8 or 9 of the top 10 pay-per-view broadcasts ever done in the United States of America are professional wrestling. Massive, massive international enterprise in Mexico, in Japan, in Europe, in Connecticut. All of your minor leagues. So you have minor league baseball in Altoona, you have minor league baseball in Erie, you have minor league baseball across the border in Youngstown, Ohio, in Charleston, West Virginia, again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I end it with a little thing at the bottom. What's within 1 hour of your house? I mean, at night, we all go and sleep somewhere. And so if you stick to the big four, then you're going to limit yourself in Western Pennsylvania to Pirates, Steelers, Penguins. But if you use the rest of the little boxes on this slide, you're going to have more potential places to look for work than you can probably get your arms around. And I challenge you to go with the bigger list. This is the part about patience rather than restrict yourself to the big four. Because the big four also means that you think you're going to start at the pros, and some of you will be fortunate and you will. It took me 16 years to get there, just to give you a flavor, 16 years. But for everyone else, for the vast majority of us, this is a work in progress. I did the legal work for a minor league baseball team and a minor league hockey team for 5, 6, 7, 8 years before I even got a sniff to apply for the major league team. So just please conduct a broader search. Going to pick up the pace just a little here so that we have Q&A time. Next slide, please. Everyone asks me, where should I go? And some of you know about these websites. Some of you, it'll be new to. Teamwork Online comes out of Cleveland, Ohio. It's a website. It is the best clearinghouse for jobs on the professional side, minor and major league. Company's owned by a woman named Buffy Philippel. Buffy's extremely successful. You should look at that site. You should study it. Most of the teams in all of the leagues, we post our jobs and our job openings not only on our own website, but we post them on Teamwork Online. You can do it two ways. There's a free site, or you can pay a little more. I leave that to you. I don't want to hurt Buffy's business and say that you don't need to pay for the premium site. I think you get the job notifications a little quicker, and I think your resume may get looked at a little more, but I leave that to you and the website. But this is an invaluable source. And you'll start to develop a familiarity with what kind of jobs are out there. What cities are they in? How entry level are they? What kind of qualifications do I need to have? And then the same thing on the collegiate side. The NCAA marketplace works the same way. And because there's 350 Division I institutions and I think almost 4,000 colleges in the country that have some form of athletics or sport, you'll find that site can be overwhelming. There's postings every day, and you've got to carve out a little bit of your day to take a look at it on a regular basis. The other thing I find that these two sites will help you do, you'll start to target where you might fit. You'll develop a strategy. Excuse me. 1 second, please. Read the advertisement for the ads and figure out what you're qualified to do. Don't waste your time applying on things that are a stretch because, again, there's going to be those 200 or 300 applications. Beyond what you're qualified to do, then take a look at what you're good at so that you can stress it in your application. Take a look at what you like. No one likes going to a job that they don't like, okay? And if you read enough of these advertisements, you'll start to develop a strategy that fits you. I get a letter, and this is a true story. I get letters every now and then, dear Mr. Kirstein, my extensive work in divorce law eminently qualifies me to work as your next law clerk. Probably not. So, if it's a marketing job and you have zero marketing background or experience, all you're going to do is let the team's HR department know or the league's HR department know that you're one of those random people that applies for everything. And when they get your next resume that might actually be for something that's a fit, they might just move you to the pile that goes in the trash because they knew that you didn't have any credibility the last time. So don't be the person that applies for everything. Apply for the things that fit and where you're qualified. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, the next two are important. Geographically mobile. Out of the 10 slides we have, this is a big one. Here's what happens. I get letters all the time. Dear Mr. Kirstein, I'll do anything to work in sports. And something about the person's resume will intrigue me, will interest me, will enthuse me. So I bring them in for an interview. Now, keep in mind, they've said, I'll do anything to work in sports. So as a conversation starter, I'll ask them, well, who else have you written to? Who else have you emailed? Who else have you called? Where else have you applied? And they say, well, nowhere. I only wrote to you. And I'll say, well, aren't you the person that told me you'd do anything to work in sports? We have in Columbus a professional soccer team in the MLS, and we have the largest athletic department in the country at Ohio State, 4 miles up the street from my office. So if you're going to tell people that you'll do anything to work in sports, this is, the previous slide about broadening that search. My final 5 candidates for the legal fellowship came from Oklahoma, Miami, Buffalo, New Orleans, and St. Louis. You've got to make a personal decision as to how far you're willing to go to get one of these jobs. And think about where you are willing and able. We tell the story. Our former vice president of marketing at the Blue Jackets is now back in. Is everyone still with me?
Yeah, you're still coming through.
Okay, I got a warning here. Thank you. Let's move on. We had a vice president of marketing at the Blue Jackets who was in collegiate sport at the University of Texas, El Paso, collegiate sport at the University of Tulsa, professional sports in Indianapolis, professional sports in Columbus, back to the collegiate side in Texas, and now on the collegiate side in Michigan. And every one of those movements has been a career builder for him. And he's now the athletic director of a Division I institution in Michigan. But you may have to be geographically mobile. If you can't be, and look, I understand the realities of this. If you can't be straight with the potential employers. Tell them that your family situation limits you to a certain city or a certain metropolitan area. Tell them that your finances limit you if that's the case, because otherwise you set false expectations for yourself and for the employer. We had, I mentioned one of the 5 finalists was a gentleman from Buffalo. And if I ever was given the opportunity again in the future, I would hire him in a minute because he knew he was one of our 5 finalists. He was about to fly in from Buffalo to Columbus. And he called me and he said, we just had a baby and my wife's unsure if she wants to move and take a baby to a new city. And so I'm going to withdraw from consideration. I thought that was a noble thing to do. I thought it was a mature thing to do. And it convinced me all the more that this gentleman should have been a finalist. So if you can't be geographically mobile, be straight with the employer. If you can be, it's that 1 hour test from the other slide. Where can you commute to that's 1 hour each way and get this sports job that you want? Next slide, please. This one should talk about economically mobile. This is the other big one. And again, I don't want to discourage anyone. I want you to leave here with a realistic sense of what you're aspiring to. Most of the time in sport, you'll make 70% of what you could make if you were in another industry. Sport is great fun. It's really cool. Everybody asks you about it all the time. It's a great way to make a living. You can be comfortable. But because the supply of employees, 200 or 300 for every position, is so great, the employers don't have any reason to overpay. So, I've pointed out some things here. And for those of you that are students, some of your parents are going to roll their eyes. But, these internships, these fellowships, these clerkships, some of them are going to be unpaid. And you've got to make the decision of, can you work for free? Or the decision, can you work for a team and get a second job, tending bar or at Starbucks once things open back up to pay your bills, while you get this sports training, sports resume builder, sports experience. There's nothing wrong with that second job. We have people full-time at the Blue Jackets who, because of their student loans, have other jobs, and they manage both of them very well. But I don't want anyone fooled that along with the fun and the cool side of sports and free tickets, okay, we do get free tickets. that what comes with that is, 100% of the time a massive paycheck. There's a discount in sports, and you can find people. Some people burn out on the industry because the other thing that happens, if you work for the hockey team like I do, I've got 45 nights per year that I'm at the arena till 10 o'clock, 41 home games and 4 exhibition games. For some families, that's not a good thing. And then if you combine that with the long days, combined with, wow, I could make more money if I worked at the local hospital in public relations, you may find that your significant other or your parents don't think it's such a great idea. So just be economically mobile, particularly when you're at the entry stage. The other piece of advice is just life advice. To be geographically mobile, to be economically mobile. Obviously, if you're single now, this is a lot easier. If you have a significant other or you have children, then picking up your life and moving to Indianapolis from Pittsburgh, moving to New York from Pittsburgh, and taking your 2 kids with you, this all gets eminently harder. So, I'd encourage you, if you're going to get after this sooner rather than later, or it just gets complicated, you can think of my Buffalo example. A gentleman had to pull himself out of a job search that he wanted because he just had a baby and didn't want to change cities. Those are just practicalities, folks. Next slide, please. Okay, this is about networking, and we won't beat this to death because it's probably the most cliche word anywhere. And we'll wrap up here. So how do you target who you're going to see? I have people, because you can find them all online, go to the front office directory for any team, for any league, and start to study the job titles that people have. See what sounds interesting, see what sounds boring. Look for people that are an appropriate level of contact where they're actually going to take your call, take your email, take your resume. If you send a letter to the president, you're probably not going to get a response. If you call the switchboard and ask who takes the resumes and they tell you it's the HR assistant, that's a good person to send your materials to. If you're in public relations or marketing, sometimes the number 2, number 3 person in those departments is a good place to send your resume. How do you find those people? Go to the front office directory for the team, which is just online for every team in the country. Duquesne's athletic department is online. You can find everybody's name, everyone's desk phone, everyone's email, everyone's title. So you just have to do that spade work. Once you decide who you're going to target, I call it being politely persistent. Don't be a nag. So it's not an email every day or a phone call every day. And when you get through to somebody, you're willing to meet, not at your convenience, at their convenience. These are busy people, okay? And so you've got to bend your schedule to accommodate their schedule because you're the one who wants the meeting. They don't need the meeting. They've got employees. They probably have some good ones. So be flexible with that. If you get in to see someone, okay, keep your promise. If you told them that you'd like 20 minutes of their time, don't try to stretch it into 30 because you think that you're going to impress them all the more. If you told them that you are just there for an informational interview, don't ask for a job. You lose credibility. Be straight with the people. If you're straight with them, you'll find that they're interested in you back. And then you can ask some harder questions. Who else do you know, sir or ma'am, in the industry that you might be willing to refer me to? Do you mind if I stay in touch every 3 months? Do you mind if I send you updates as I accomplish important things in my career? Can I just stay informed about what you're up to or what the team's up to? Okay, but you've got to establish that relationship. And if you go there and you ask for 30 minutes and you stay 45, or you tell them it's informational, but you sort of beg for a job, you're going to lose all credibility. And then you've got to work at this. This is the part about patience. I was telling Sarah before we got online, I know most of the other sports lawyers around the Midwest, and I've been able to get some law students interviews at the Reds, at the Cleveland Cavaliers, with the Cleveland Browns. But for the person doing the driving from Columbus, that's a 4 to 5 hour round trip just for a law student to spend 30 or 60 minutes with the general counsel of one of the other pro teams. Some students are interested in that. They'll make that trip. They'll put a suit on. They'll drive to Cincinnati or Cleveland, and they come back having made, a significant contact in sports industry. Other students, as soon as I tell them that they have to drive to Cleveland or Cincinnati, you can see them get to be not so interested. So that's a little bit about networking. It's a building process, and it'll take you years. Let's finish up here. Next slide, please. Some of this we've been over. Couple quick things about if you get a meeting, please study the organization and the person that you're going to see. The Blue Jackets have been in Columbus for 20 years. Blue Jackets has always been two words, just like Red Wings. But I get resumes that spell Blue Jackets as one word. I get form letters where I can tell the student has cut and pasted. I get letters that say that they can't work to wait for the Columbus Lightning. Don't do that to yourself, please. Be careful with what you send out. And then study the person you're going to see. You can find tons of information about people on LinkedIn, on Facebook, in the media, news articles, social media. You should know that person better than they know themselves, because when you get there, you not only want to be interesting, you want to be interested. And they're going to be interested in you if you're interested in them. People, me included, right, like to talk about themselves. So you've got to make that interplay as to why you should be a new person on their horizon. And when they go home that night and they're talking to their family, someone says, "What did you do today?" "Wow, I met a really impressive young person who says they want to work for us." If you can accomplish that, then your meeting's been worthwhile. The person you don't want to be is the person just nagging people to take your resume when they've told you that they don't have any openings, they don't have any interest, okay? That just leaves a bad taste in the employer's mouth. Last slide, please. And Sarah and other Duquesne people, we can go over for those who can stay. It's okay with me for the Q&A. So once you get there, you've got to excel. This is that performance and fit part. What are we looking for? Performance, quality of your work. Is it excellent most of the time? Timeliness of your work. Did you get it to us by the deadline? Willingness to take on extra in your department, willingness to volunteer for other things that help the organization. That's performance. What about fit? People want to work with you. Leaders of the organization notice who you are, and you get an occasional chance to chat with them because they've identified that you're someone they want to keep around. The best example I can give you, we had a young man in the hockey operations department, came from Prince Edward Island, Canada, 21, 22-year-old intern. He was supposed to work in the hockey department for a summer. He did his work all day, every day. And then at 6 o'clock, he went door to door, not in a suck up kind of way, in a very sincere sort of way. He went door to door to every executive at 6 o'clock and said, "My name is so-and-so. I'm here for the summer. My work for today is done, but what can I do to help you?" We were scrambling all over each other to hire him permanently. He now has a very good position with the New Jersey Devils. He spent 10 years with us, but that's who you want to be. Not the person trying to escape at 4:30 because you have a soccer game. That's the kind of role, the kind of leadership, the kind of stick-to-itiveness that you have to exude so that we know that you can accomplish that performance and fit. I challenge people with two things all the time, and then we'll have the Q&A. if you left, and this sounds, like I'm really harsh, but sorry about that. If you left, would we miss you or just replace you? Okay, ask yourself that question. Would we miss you or just replace you? And for those of you that are going to work for teams someday, those of you that are fans, we all go to games and we expect our favorite teams to win all the time. We're disappointed when they don't. We expect the players to perform all the time at a top-notch level. If you don't win the Super Bowl, don't win the World Series, then the players must not have performed. You have to ask yourself on the business side, was your performance today worthy of the Stanley Cup? Did you do as much as you're asking the players to do when you're in the arena or the stadium working for the exact same organization? Or do you have some standard where you expect the most from the players, but it's okay if you slack a little bit? Those are the things we look for. Yeah, it sounds way over the top. It sounds like I'm at 130%, but I'm trying to help you get in those top 5 people out of the 200 or 300. So a bit of a breathless presentation. We don't have to quit at 1:00 for those that stay. And let's go with the Q&A, please.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Greg. Very resourceful and realistic, which, I, as a young professional, appreciate, not the starry-eyed dreamers, nice real talk. So a couple of the questions, you touched on this a little bit with transferable skills and experience, but what would you encourage young professionals to include or exclude on their resume? And what kind of questions, like how do you see that stick-to-itiveness on a piece of paper before you get them in an interview?
Yeah. I look for people that have done something substantial. What do I mean by that? If you're don't be the person that joins 23 clubs and goes to one meeting per year at each of them. If you're going to round yourself out in the community at working, volunteering at Goodwill Industries or Big Brothers Big Sisters or the Duquesne Athletic Department, go and make a mark. That's the stick-to-itiveness. Some people want to give me a laundry list of all these places that they've been, but if I call those places, no one remembers them because they weren't there long enough to make an impression. So that would be one tip. The other thing that I shared with some people yesterday, that there was a pre-call for today's meeting. The one thing to understand about sports, folks, at its rawest essence, it is the movement of large amounts of money. The fans give money for their tickets and their food and beverage and their parking and their merchandise. The team takes the money and gives it to the players. The TV networks give the money to the owners and the owners give the money to the players. So for your resume builder, the more you can show that you're comfortable around money, commerce, business, transactions, I think those are the kind of things we look for. You don't have to be an expert at it. You just have to be comfortable. Even our foundation, which is our charitable side and gives away $2 million a year, you can't be the director of our foundation or work in our charity if you're not comfortable that you have to raise and give away $2 million a year. So I cite that as an example. So a little bit of substance for the things you volunteer for, and as much understanding as you can around business and commerce.
And kind of to tie into that, we got another question in the chat about what other marketing positions are there besides ticket sales?
Yeah, so every team's a little different. We've got a public relations department. That's press conferences and interviews and press releases. The department that has grown everywhere that is sort of marketing is obviously social media. We had 0 people 5 years ago, and we probably have 10 or 11 now who do nothing but, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, constantly for the team. Marketing has both a digital branch and a conventional branch. So the conventional branch is deciding what TV ads to buy, what billboards around town, what radio ads. And the digital side is deciding what goes on the website, what the Facebook posts should be. They're working closely with the social people. And then there's a boots on the ground side. It was in the little bio, but we have a majority interest in 9 ice rinks in Columbus. We sponsor learn to skate and learn to play hockey classes for 7-year-olds. And we have people out at the rinks all the time teaching hockey, teaching skating, hoping to get the marketing idea is if your 7-year-old falls in love with the game, within a week or two, they'll ask mom or dad to take them to a game. 2 weeks later, they buy a ball cap, and 2 weeks later, they're watching the games on TV. So those are the various aspects of how our marketing is set up. Traditional, digital, public relations, foundation, and ice rinks.
That's awesome. It's almost like creating like a lifestyle or a culture, not just like an event for a team.
Yeah, yeah, we like it when you hear people say they're a hockey family.
So moving on to more of like your law experience, what kind of internships should people be looking for, let's say, as a second-year law student?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really hard for all the law people on the call to just, go to sports jobs. There are some, we've had unpaid clerks, and regrettably, I can't get budget for a paid law clerk, but we've had unpaid law clerks probably for 20 years. They spend a summer with us. You can find those, but they're few and far between. If I'm a law student, I think the best place you can go, doesn't matter the size, but go to a firm first, because the skills you'll learn will be things that we need. It's again, cliche. We need you to be able to write clearly. We need you to be able to speak clearly. We need you to be able to respond to deadline pressure. We need you to be able to take complex problems and simplify them for us. And I find that, there's a pretty good training there for if you can get into a law firm. The government offices are, and I don't mean to diminish it, they're almost as good. You can go to the attorney general, go to the city attorney, go to the prosecutor's office. They're just a little more 9 to 5. It's the reality of the situation. So, but I like people to go and sharpen their law skills before they worry about sharpening their sports skills, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. You have to be like a well-rounded communicator almost, not just fit into one category and pigeonhole yourself. That's great. So that covered those. So let's talk about a little bit, since it's a timely issue, the pandemic with COVID-19 and how that's going to affect the market or already is. Will companies have to adapt to students who didn't have a full internship experience due to the pandemic? Are they going to be looking for things? Let's say there's a break in your resume for a year because of COVID-19. How is that going to affect their chances of getting an interview or a job?
Yeah, we're all, we're painfully aware of what young aspiring people are going through now. So I don't think it hurts anybody. I don't know if people need to be so blunt as, putting on their resume career interrupted or career planning interrupted by COVID. It would probably make us laugh. We're not going to penalize, at least at the Blue Jackets, we're not going to penalize anybody because as soon as the COVID hit, we went into a hiring freeze. Regrettably, we've had to have some terminations and furloughs and wage reductions, so it'd be unfair. I do think this, though. I think, there's a prediction that it's going to take, I had mentioned concerts too, but there's a prediction out there that it's going to take sport and entertainment until 2024 to come back. So for those of you that want to do this, you're probably going to have to work all the harder because, first we're all going to get comfortable going back to our offices, and then the various governors of the various states are going to let fans in and then more fans in. And then a year or two, it might be back to normal. It may be until then that we start to hire you, because you have to keep in mind the money we're losing right now. We lost 12 games between the 12th of March and the end of April, and it probably cost us, I don't know, 10, $15 million. The Ohio State Athletic Department, with no fans for football, is projecting that they're going to lose $130 million. So they're probably not hiring tomorrow. So what do students do? I don't think it'll hurt students. I think companies will still be impressed with those that are excellent. I just think it'll be a slower process before we start hiring again.
On the other hand, do you think that this is creating a different kind of skill set for people, or maybe different positions as far as virtual entertainment goes?
Yes, we have a league call tomorrow with the NHL. The social content being put out by every team, every league, every website is through the roof. Our social people have probably never worked harder trying to keep your interest right now in the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're mad that we have a hiring freeze. They feel they could justify 2 or 3 more people tomorrow. And the league call tomorrow is to warn all of us that just because we have more content on our social pages and our digital marketing, that it doesn't mean that we're free to use songs and videos that we don't have licenses for, because people are trying to get creative. There's so many things trying to demand your attention on a call right now, like this call, right? We're all going to get off of this call and we're going to go do something else via video. So yeah, I do think there's opportunity. If you're good on the digital video, social side, you may find a job before other people do. It's a much healthier area to be right now than ticket sales.
Right, absolutely. What area would you say for like recent graduates really has the most employment opportunities, not only starting positions, but being able to climb the ladder and advance with your experience?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things. Obviously, what I call the modern side, the digital side's not going away anytime soon. I've been at the team 22 years. I'm shocked every day when I do a sponsor deal that sponsors don't want to know how many radio or TV commercials the Jackets are going to provide them. They want to know how many retweets we're going to do of their brand messaging. So I think there's huge upside on the social and digital side, particularly for young people who are very good. Same on the video side. The more that you can make your videos distinguish themselves from all the clutter out there. We've got 3 people in video who do nothing but work on trying to make our presentations be really sharp. So I think there's jobs to be had there. There'll always be ticket sales jobs. I wouldn't recommend that now because there's no one to sell the tickets to. And then there's there's sort of the part that no one ever thinks of. All the teams have the boring departments. Right now our HR department, they're slammed. We're trying to navigate how we keep everybody employed, how we keep everybody paid, what we do for the employees who have had to file unemployment, those sorts of things. So it sounds crazy, but things like IT, HR, legal, and finance, which are usually pretty mundane, they don't have any sex appeal like marketing or hockey ops. There's demand there. I've never worked harder than I have in the last 7 months trying to figure out legally what we're going to do. We have 85 to 100 sponsors. Every one of those sponsors got cheated out of the last 12 games of the season. They didn't get what they paid for, and we have to strike a new deal with them. So the short answer is the boring departments need help too.
So don't get blindsided by what you think is glamorous, kind of got to work for it. So we're going to have time for 2 more questions.
Yep.
One that's a little more personal for you is, how did you get your name out there? We talked a little bit about broad spectrum, how everyone can work a little bit, but what about your story? How did you get started?
Yeah, I'll try to give you the short version. The good news after my speech about commerce and business, I am a former sports writer. So I was at 3 major newspapers, and that really helped in the early days gain some contacts. But then I found myself practicing law, and I was in the courtroom, and I desperately missed sport. I put law down. I went to Temple University as an assistant AD, left my legal career behind me. It didn't work out for a bunch of funny reasons that I'd love to tell people over a beer, but and then I had to find a way to get back into sport. So now we have sports writer and assistant AD at a university. I called the NCAA and I volunteered for anything that they had just to keep my name in the game. They made me the editor of the little annual journal that goes out to the academic advisors in the athletic departments. And I did that at my dining room table for 7 years. So this is a bit about volunteering and networking. They literally would send me manuscripts and I'd edit them and send them back and then publish them for all the people that tutor the Division I athletes. But it turned out to be a pretty good resume builder. Then we got minor league hockey in Columbus, Ohio in 1991. And I walked into the office and I didn't volunteer my legal services. I had a bit of a reputation as a lawyer. I volunteered to take them around and introduce them to people that I knew, the mayor, the guys on morning radio, the people at the Ohio State Athletic Department, just so that the minor league hockey team would start to have a little bit of a presence in the city. They turned into my client. We then took the profits from the minor league team and started to build these ice rinks. That turned into my client. A year or two later, I got asked to represent the AAA baseball team in Columbus. And 16 years in, I was all of a sudden a candidate for the NHL job. So that's 16 years crammed into 11 sentences. But hopefully the things that I've shared with people today, hopefully I did some of those things. And I would tell you, I'm proud of it. It wasn't easy. So, and some of it's luck. My law partner had the baseball account. He came to me and said, "You already have the hockey account. Would you like the baseball account?" He was just being nice. If he doesn't do that, I don't know if I have enough credentials.
Well, also, like you said, it's networking. Maybe if you asked him if he wanted help, now he's going to think of you next time. So kind of, again, like you said, and your experience, 16 years, that's a lot of transferable skills that you mentioned before. Maybe it's not directly related to each other, but it all builds off of one another. So one last question we had in the chat. One's kind of exciting for me because it's a little bit about my background too. Would you consider sports broadcasting to be more of the business side of the of the game, I guess, or is it just a media position? I got my certificate in business for my minor with it because I kind of wanted both of those skill sets to be combined. But what do you think? Yeah,
I think you have to separate. So the broadcasters are just like the players. Unless anybody on this call is going to, go broadcast a game tonight, you're almost on the competitive side. They're like in a gray land. The rest of broadcast journalism is on the business and money side. Our deal with Fox Sports Ohio, the Penguins deal with, which I think it's AT&T now in Pittsburgh, the Pirate deal, those are massive, massive business deals, and tons of people work for these sports networks. Think about Fox and all the channels that it has, and trying to compete with ESPN, and what goes on every Saturday, Big Saturday versus Game Day, those sorts of things. So I think you can draw the same line. If you want to be in the booth with a microphone in your hand or on the sidelines, you're more a player. And if you want to be the person, the engineer, the people in the truck, the people deciding how many games are going to be broadcast, the people deciding what kind of rights fees to pay, then I think you're on the business side.
Great. And a little shameless plug, you should join your university's TV station and work with the moderator. And that way you have a portfolio to build. So thank you so much, Greg. It was great chatting with you. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to send us off.
Sorry we ran over, folks.
Well, Greg, you had a great presentation, and thanks so much for answering so many questions from the group. the comments in the chat really indicated that your experience and enthusiasm was inspiring and true to life. So we'll share those notes through the chat with you later. Michaela, thank you for your expert moderating skills and for your assistance with this program today. I'm sure you have a great future in sports and media. Thank you to all our alumni and friends for attending today's Alumni Insights. In a follow-up email, all participants will receive a copy of the recording of this program for your reference and sharing. If you or an alumnus that you know is interested in presenting an Alumni Insights program, a link to the presenter application will also be in your follow-up email. So have a great day, everyone. Stay safe. And as always, go Dukes.
Go Dukes. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Michaela.